All right, folks, welcome to another Monday night live Q&A, and I guess this is the last one of the year. So welcome to our brand new, beautiful new studio. Just kidding, we're on a green screen, but figured we would do something different. We're kind of at the bursting at the seam here in this building because of the move, the impeding move. Hopefully that happens in January. So we have to be limiting the number of studios sets that we have available. But yeah, this is where we are. So I'm going to log in real quick and see our live Q&A right here. There you go. All right, let's see who we got. We have Jillian. Wait, is Jillian the first one in the community? Really? All right, maybe not. I don't know. I can only see so many chats. Hopefully I'm not missing anyone. Anyway, Jillian is here. Guns and Glory is here. Thorough Inspired is here. We have Pablo Jr., Curtis Warren. We have our friend Minot from Engineer Drone Services. None Your Business here as well every week. Ed Rutledge is here. We have Super 8mm 1. We have Louisiana Helicam, Sergio de la Garza, always here as well. Pat Levine, and we have Ralph. MJ Videos 525, Northern Drone Guy, as always. All Deadeye, also here quite a bit. Hawaii Girl Adventures. Sucked Night. We have Steve. Make It Happen Videos. Awesome. James Cox. Retired Fire Chief is here as always. Travis Cheney as always. Curtis Warren as always. I see a lot of familiar faces. William is here. Vic, our friend Vic from Vic Moss Photography. We have, who else? Luke. Honey Thunder is here. Travis D. Mark Saxon. Anyways, lots of folks in here. Well, I hope you had a good Christmas. It's definitely been, was busy at my house with 3 kids opening gifts on the 25th. Lots of fun seeing the young kids, just seeing what they get from Santa and from everybody else. And a lot of playing after that for sure. So always a good time. All right. We recorded today. Hey, Ben, did we make that video available to everyone in the community? Tomorrow. Okay. So today we recorded a post-flight, which is our video where we go over extended news update, if you want to call it that. And we are making this one available to everyone. Usually it's limited to folks that are in the premium community, but this one had additional information about flying inside a TFR in New Jersey and in New York. And I know it's very useful information, so I wanted to make sure everybody get to see that.
So premium, it's posted now?
Premium is available now, and then community will be available tomorrow. Okay, so if you're in the regular community, the free community, if you want to call it that, then it will be available tomorrow. If you're in premium, it is available now. Make sure you go check it out because there is quite a bit of information. We also talked about other things. You'll see. I think this was a good discussion today. So, all right, where are we at? Any other updates that I need to talk about? Yeah, it's the end of the year, man. It's December 30th. We've got another day in the office tomorrow. We moved I don't know if you guys have probably seen our studio here at the moment. We have 2 different offices. We have an office where all the employees are, and we have the studio where we're recording right now. Well, because we're moving to the new building very soon, we let go of the office, which means that everybody now is in the same room on the other side of this wall right here. So it's a little bit snuggy, but it's only for a short amount of time. We're going to return it to the current tenant so they can do something else with it. And then we're hoping to be moving everything else out of here very, very soon. So I heard we should be hearing back from the city on the 7th, which is, I guess, next Monday. So we've got another week of work. Before we hear back from the city. We have plenty to do. As a matter of fact, some of our team is going to be out there tomorrow doing more network stuff. We have a couple of touch-ups that we have to do in a few places. We have to run more cables. We have to run a bunch of SDI cables for our cameras, which we just got today. So busy time, but it's the end of the year, so we'll be spending the last day of the year in a new building, which is awesome. Okay. What else? Which city? That would be Prescott, Arizona, for Russell. So yeah, we're moving about, 5 miles? I think it's 6 miles. It's about 4 miles from here to the new building, which is downtown. So, okay, let's get with the questions. None of your business says, Greg, have been having an issue with a COA for a 0-foot grid for a roof inspection. The FAA finally approved it and auto set it for the next day, Christmas Eve, when it was scheduled to rain. Now I have to wait another however many days for them to reapprove. I feel this should be much easier. Yeah, I have to agree with that. This whole process is a little bit painful. You should be able to get it much quicker now because you're resubmitting. Hopefully, I hope that's correct. But next time that you do this, try to ask for more than 1 day. Ask for like a whole week to fly in that specific area. If they're giving you 1 day, there's no reason why they can't give you, 3 or 4 days of approval at the same time. So, yeah, hopefully you get that. That sucks otherwise. In my county in Ohio, a local radio station had open phone lines and a person called and said that he was going to shoot a drone down. Can you reiterate why it's illegal to shoot a drone down? Yeah, it's illegal because of the U.S. code. Vic has it memorized. This is one of the pieces of regulation I don't have memorized, but I'm sure Vic will put it in here as soon as he hears me. But yeah, there's a piece of regulation that says that shooting at an aircraft is a federal offense. So I would not do that. And of course, people don't know that. They think drones are not aircraft, but if it's a registered aircraft with the FAA, it's an aircraft. An aircraft is an aircraft. So doing that would not be good. You can tell them that somebody got a $5,000 fine recently and 6 months probation in Florida after shooting at a drone from Walmart, I think it was. And it's really interesting, actually, if I can go on a bit of a sideline here. For several years now, we've been seeing people getting shot at by people on the ground, and nobody really ever did anything about it. Nobody being on the law enforcement side of things. Technically, the FBI, I think, is the agency that's supposed to get involved with this, and it didn't. 18 U.S.C. 32, thank you. But I had said multiple times over the years that as soon as Walmart or Amazon or one of the big delivery people get their drone shot at, then we would see a change. And guess what? That guy in Florida was the first guy that I knew of that got charged with shooting at a drone because the big company, multi-billion-dollar company, got their stuff taken down. So I find it a little bit funny. Not that it's funny by any means, but there was one guy that got in trouble, but mostly because he was a felon and wasn't supposed to own firearms and shot at a police drone and then get in trouble. But I don't think he got in trouble for shooting at the drone. So there's that. So yeah, 18 U.S.C. 32. I should be able to memorize that, but I never do for some reason. But yeah, that's fun. William says, ordered a Neo from DJI and it was stopped at the port of entry. That sucks. Eventually, DHS sent it back to China. DJI customer care issued a refund, but it took time to happen. Custom issues seem random. Yeah, they seem random. They seem like, depending on the port, I wonder, was it the port of Miami? Tell me, because this is where it seems like we've seen the most of these issues. Interesting, Vic. Vic says federal charges was dropped. He pleaded guilty to illegal discharge, and 10 grand to Walmart. Yep. But if it was somebody else, it probably would not have happened. Sorry, I get sidetracked. Port issue. I think Miami has been the port of entry where we've seen the most issues. So let us know, William, if that was the actual. Oh no, Norfolk. Okay. Then I don't know. That's interesting. But we have seen more people. We did a review of the Air 3S that we posted on YouTube, and quite a few people have made comments that their drone was getting caught at custom, which I think is total BS that they're able to do that. This is essentially politicians blocking DJI without the proper legal way to do it, if that makes any sense. Anyways. Yep. None of Your Business says there should be a technology out there like ADSB for drones, not remote ID. Connect your controller to the internet network and it will display your drone and on the grid. Yeah, I don't know. So for those of you that are not familiar, back when the FAA proposed regulation for remote ID, the NPRM, Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, there was discussion that remote ID was going to be a network remote ID, but it wasn't going to be using the internet. It was going to be using 5G technology to send the signal from the drone, not necessarily from the drone to the controller and then from the controller up into space. There was a lot of pushback for a good reason. I was opposed. A lot of folks in the industry were opposed to network remote ID because it would have added a massive expense to anyone flying a drone, because now you need to have a 5G connection. The folks that were really excited about this were mostly telecom companies, which maybe I shouldn't say it that way, but regardless, there was a lot of pushback from the community on network remote ID. Now, I do believe that there is a place for network remote ID in complex operations, in complex airspace, but not for the average user like you and I and a lot of people that watch this. So there is that. But yeah, Vic says no network remote ID. Yeah, I agree with that. I was pretty adamant in my response in the NPRM about that. Travis D says, any special rules about flying drones in Indian reservations? Yes. Remember that Indian reservation is our sovereign land, which means that they have their own rules. You need to have permission from there before you can take off and land from their land. So, yep. As far as the airspace, it is still controlled by the FAA, but the land itself is not. So keep that in mind. Minut says, I know the DJI Fly app interface was designed to be compatible for Air 3S, Neo, Avata 2, Mini 4 Pro, but can I just use one RC2 controller for both the Mini 4 and the Air 3S? Yeah, you can. You just have to, you'll have to rebind the aircraft each time that you want to fly. So all it takes is a double tap and hold on the drone itself. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm getting a brain fart. Just press and hold until it starts beeping to put it in binding mode. That's how you put the aircraft in binding mode. And you do the same on the controller. Press and hold after it's been turned on. And then it will go into binding the two. And then you'll be able to use it. So we do this from time to time with our drones because we have, I don't know, we have 1 million controllers and 1 million drones, and sometimes they get rebinded differently. So yeah, you can absolutely do that. It's a bit of a pain, but it's definitely possible. Do I have to wait for my temporary certificate to arrive in the mail before legally being able to operate my drone commercially? So Josh, your temporary certificate does not come in the mail. You will download it on the IACRA website. This is where you submitted your application with the FAA. So once you get on there, you'll see there's a drop down with the temporary certificate. You can download it, print it, and then have it available. Your card, your permanent card, will arrive in the mail, and that takes typically 90-ish days, although people have been getting them a little bit quicker. But your temp is valid for 120 days. So 4 months, typically within 3 months, you should get the other one. But as soon as you have your temp, you are good to operate. You cannot operate before you get your temp. Excuse me. So make sure that you get that document first, issued in IACRA, and then you're good to fly. Eric says, my drone stable is rather old. Okay. I assume if I want to go fly, I need remote IDs, blah, 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 Phantom 3 standard, Mavic 2 Pro, DJI Mini Original. Yes, 2 of these don't have remote ID. The Mavic 2 Pro, if you update the firmware, it will have remote ID, but not the Phantom 3 and not the Mini Original. So you would need to have a module for those. If you're flying recreationally, the Mini Original does not need remote ID because it doesn't need registration. Old Man Droning says, with regard to laws about flying over people, what is the definition of over? Directly over? Or is there a minimum distance like 10 meters or other? Flying over is just that. It's flying over. Any time any part of the drone is over any part of the human body, then you're flying over someone. But with that being said, keep in mind that a drone that is flying forward has momentum. If you were to lose a motor, lose a battery, whatever it is, it's going to keep on going in its trajectory to the ground and could potentially hit someone. So even though you're further away from them as you're flying, if you were to lose the engine and then it hits someone, then you would have been over them at one point because you hit them. So keep that in mind. Not a good thing to do. Lightyear says the best updated apps for tracking drones with remote ID. Drone Scanner, as far as I'm concerned, is the most updated and most compatible with the most platforms. Keep in mind, it's not going to pick up every signal. If depending on the drone, on the phone that you have, if you have a phone from Apple, you will only be able to pick up signal from remote ID modules because they're using Wi-Fi, they're using Bluetooth, but not from standard remote ID drones that have it, integrated into the drone itself, because those use Bluetooth, use Wi-Fi technically. What, did I just mess that up? Yeah, Bluetooth for modules, Wi-Fi for standard remote ID. So Apple devices are not able to get Wi-Fi signal remote ID. Android phones can get both of them, but the signal is not always very powerful. It's kind of line of sight limitation. So yeah, I would say. Can we file a class action suit against the DHS? I mean, you can try, obviously. I don't know what this is in reference to, Mark. Is it because of the issues that we have at port of entry? I don't know. But you can sue anyone anytime for anything. Doesn't mean you're going to win, but you can definitely sue. As far as class action suit, I think you need to find a lawyer that's willing to take it on, to take it to the next level. Raise the altitude to 1,500 feet. No, not really. I don't think that's a good idea, quite frankly. There's a lot of aircraft that are flying between 400 feet and 1,500 feet. The reason the FAA gave the first 400 feet to drone pilots is because it's an area that has very few traffic, very little traffic. You will get a lot more traffic between 400 and 1,500. Plus 1,500 feet is way too far for visual line of sight anyway. Russell says, are there good for-flight integration for Part 107 activity? Asking as an existing Part 61 to soon add Part 107. Not really. There's not really any additional option. Now, with that being said, I use for-flight quite a bit to do planning for drones if I need to, because of the airspace information, because of weather information. But no, there's not a specific... I wonder if this could be a line of business actually for flight. But yeah, there is other options that are available for free, like aloft air control, for example, that are much more geared towards drone pilots. But I can understand if you already have that tool, which is a great tool, that you would want to use it. Hiram says, if I was flying my drone while anchored in middle of a river to video myself fishing and say the controller accidentally fell in the water and no one is in control of the drone, what is the procedure? Well, eventually that drone is going to go into return to home mode if you have a DJI drone or similar, which means that the drone is going to try to go back to the takeoff point. Now, if you were on the river and you were, let's say, going down a river, it's going to try to go back to where you started and took off from, which means that that's not great. So I don't recommend it. You would have to paddle up the river to go back and find the takeoff point, unless you took off from the side of the river on the ground, in which case the drone would go back to that. But yeah, Lose a lanyard? Yeah, you use a lanyard. That's the great recommendation from Ethan. Eric says, do you still find the Air 3S 20 megapixel a good upgrade compared to the Air 2S as far as photography? Yeah, I do think so. I mean, we didn't compare it directly to the Air 2S. We compared it to the Air 3. But when we did the Air 3, we compared it to the Air 2S, and there was an improvement for sure in the performance. Now, is it something that you will see in your photos? I don't know. That's always hard to tell. You know, we do a lot of very kind of picky, where we look at our camera chart and, you know, compare it. The new drones tend to be a bit sharper because I think the optics are just sharper in general. The processing of the data is better, so it creates a sharper image. Is this something that you wouldn't necessarily notice on a picture that you post online? I doubt it. Is it something you might notice if you printed? Probably, if you had a side-by-side. I still think the Air 2S has great image quality, so I don't know. It's always hard to tell. You know, we can see changes in the quality on our camera chart, but it doesn't mean that it's always visible in real life. Pedestrian in the neighborhood, is that over people? If you're flying over people, then it is over people, but nearby is not over people. Does the certificate have an expiration date? Part 107 certificate does not expire. Your currency expires every 2 years, every 24 calendar months, which means that every 2 years you have to do recurrent training in order to continue having the privileges of your certificate, but the certificate in itself does not expire. Least expensive RTK-enabled drone available currently. RTK-enabled drone available currently. Mavic 3 Enterprise is the first thing that comes to mind. I can't really think of anything else that's cheaper. Does the new, Autel came up with a new drone, the Enterprise version of the, hold on, I'm trying to think if it has, I don't know if it has an RTK module. I don't think it does. I would say Mavic 3 Enterprise or Phantom 4 Pro RTK, if you can find one of those used, that would be it. That would probably be my answer. Phantom 4 Pro RTK. I don't know how much those go for, but certainly cheaper than a Mavic 3. Soon, I think there's going to be a lot of Mavic 3 Enterprise available on the market. And I don't think that's a secret. There's a Mavic 4 around the corner. People are going to get rid of their Mavic 3 to get Mavic 4s. So, Michael says, if I buy a Mini 4 with larger batteries that enable remote ID and register it, can I ever put a smaller battery in it that disables remote ID and fly recreationally? This is one of those. So here's what happens. When you register that drone, then it's a registered drone, which means that it needs remote ID, regardless of the weight. So the regulation for remote ID says that a drone that needs to be registered or a drone that is registered needs to have remote ID. So if you made the mistake of registering a drone that didn't need to be registered, because it's registered, now you need to have remote ID for it. Now, it's easy to unregister that drone flying recreationally by just removing it from the list and then removing the label. That's what I would do, quite frankly, is that just remove the label, then it's not registered anymore. Curtis Hayes says, is remote ID... So, okay, let me go back to what I just said. What I would do is, on the big battery, I would put the label. And then on the small battery, I would not put a label. This is assuming that you're flying recreationally only, okay? If you're flying recreationally only, then yeah. Now, technically, it's still on your listing with the FAA, but yeah, it's one of those things that I don't think the people that came up with the rule of registration and remote ID really had anticipated. It's just a big pain in the butt. Is remote ID a failure since it wasn't even talked about as a way to see if the New Jersey drone were legit? I mean, that's a stretch. Okay. So when remote ID was first introduced, it was sold to us as several things. One of them was as a possible way to help with airspace congestion and with air traffic management, or if you want to call it that, for drones, okay? Which I can see. I'm okay with that. It was sold to us as a national security tool, which when I left my comment for the remote ID and PRM, I mentioned that it was not going to be that because as we know, the bad guys don't follow the rules. It's like saying that having license plates on the car is going to prevent somebody from doing something stupid. Well, people just remove the license plate and then that's it. Now you can say, well, if there's a drone that doesn't have remote ID and it goes into the airspace, then it becomes suspicious. Yeah, absolutely. That's a way to look at it. But as far as the New Jersey thing, I've heard a lot of people talking about remote ID for that, and that you're supposed to be able to see this thing. Now keep in mind the reports. That's all I'm going to say. The reports that people have made is that these drones are massive. Remote ID is designed for drones under 55 pounds, mostly. About 55 pounds, technically they're supposed to be using ADS-B, amongst other things, which is what manned aircraft use. But again, if these drones are doing something bad, then they're not going to be broadcasting a signal. And keep in mind also that military drones or drones used by the federal government don't have to broadcast remote ID. So if this is what these sightings are, which I don't believe they are, but that's besides the point, then they wouldn't even be broadcasting remote ID. So I don't think remote ID is the solution in any of these sightings that we've seen, because I don't think it is what people say they are. But anyway, I said I wasn't going to talk about the New Jersey drones anymore. Where do I take a Part 107 test? Jackson, that would be at a PSI testing center. I think Jason will put a link for you in the description here. But yeah, you can schedule it with them directly. There's like 700 testing centers across the country, so there's likely one nearby. Jason says, do you know where the serial number for the remote ID would be for my 2024 EXL Black Hawk Mini Pro drone? Is that one that is actually remote ID approved? That would be my first question, Jason. So you can go on the Declaration of Compliance website for the FAA, the DOC website. I don't remember the link, but I think Jason will put it in the description. There you can search for your drone. I don't remember if the Black Hawk is in there. If it's the Mini, it's sub 250. I doubt that it has it. That's probably why you can't find it. But if it does, it would be inside of the controller. There should be a remote ID or serial number at least in there that starts with three digits and then a letter. And that 3-digit and letter is the code for the manufacturer, if you want to call it that. First Medic says, it's almost time to redo my currency. If I flunk it, how often or soon can I retry? You can't flunk it. You cannot fail the currency exam. It's what we call a corrected to 100 exam. So they'll tell you what you missed. You re-answer those questions and then you pass at the end. So the only Black Hawk with remote ID is the EXO Black Hawk 3D Pro. Yeah, that's the bigger drone I think that they have, but the smaller one doesn't have it. Silvernail says, have you found a good photogrammetry mapping software that is reasonably priced for the newer drone? The enterprise software for hobbyists is not really feasible. Yes. ODM. Yeah, ODM is free. I think it's open source, I think. And then you would be able to install that. It's a bit more complicated because it's free, obviously. I don't know if you guys have ever used the GIMP on, which is a Photoshop equivalent, but a bit more not as polished if you want, but does most of what Photoshop does. At least it did several years ago. But that's kind of the same thing with ODM. Although WebODM is definitely a very powerful software, but it's not as easy to use as something that you pay for. Lambo Drive Zambo says, don't all drones owned by Part 107 pilots need to be registered? Yes. If you're flying a drone under Part 107 rules, it needs to be registered and it needs to have remote ID regardless of the weight. Do even the enterprise drones have geofencing? Yes, they do. All DJI drones have geofencing. Derek says, have you or anyone out there know how to get the Bees 360 app to work on the DJI RC Pro? I'm not sure why you would want to do that. I'm not sure what the Bees, I know what Bees 360 is, but I don't know what their app does. Is it to control the drone? But the RC Pro technically is a Android-based, it's an Android-based tablet, so you should be able to install app on there. I know you can install app for sure. So if the Bees 360 app is available through an app store, then you should be able to do that. Isn't everything flying have remote ID or ADSB? No, it does not. So drones that are sub 250 grams that don't need to be registered because they're flown recreationally don't have remote ID. Airplanes that are in certain airspace don't need to have remote ID. So don't need to have ADSB. Drones flown by the government don't need remote ID. Aircraft flown by the government, manned aircraft, don't have ADSB. So there's a lot of aircraft that are flying out there, which is also why when this whole, and I'll get back on the New Jersey, I hate to do it, but which is why when people were looking at their app and saying, well, Flight Radar 24 is not showing an aircraft flying here because there's no ADSB. Well, military aircraft don't have ADSB. A lot of government aircraft don't have ADSB. So, and then a lot of military drones don't have remote ID. So it's not because something is flying and you can't see it on an app that is not a legal flight or that there's not a person inside of that aircraft, especially when it has red, green, and white lights on the aircraft in itself. Okay, I'll stop there. Jason says, can my cousin and I fly recreationally and take some pictures of the Grand Canyon? No. You cannot take pictures of the Grand Canyon. There's no flying in the Grand Canyon. There's not even flying of manned aircraft in the Grand Canyon in a lot of it because there's special rules. Do not fly a drone at the Grand Canyon. You will get your drone confiscated and then you will get a fine, which is not fun. Are there any rules flying drones in the Philippines? Unfortunately, Rick, I am not familiar with flying outside the United States. Wayne says, I took the 107 course and now it's time to recertify. Can I review the course material 2 years later after I took it? Yeah, absolutely. Wayne, you have lifetime access to our course. You'll see all the updates that we've made since. Although I don't think there's been a whole lot of regulatory updates in the last 2 years. I think the last time you took the course, we just had updated everything to the new regulation. But do the laws in Minnesota also go by the intent of the flight rules too? If I fly recreationally and someone decides they want to purchase one of my photos, would that go against the Minnesota rules? Yeah, there's no, this is all federal rules. So states cannot create rules that go against the federal regulation for drones. So you're good there. What's the best process if you're interested in getting into agriculture drone work? Depends on what you're trying to do with agriculture. There's different things you can do. You can do NDVI inspections for plant health. You can do crop spraying, for example. Very different fields, although they do kind of work together. Very different price of entry for those as well. So it depends on what you're interested in, but I would say people getting into agricultural drones typically have a background in agriculture in general, whether they're farmers or they've been providing services to farmers, whatever it is. if that's not your case, my recommendation would be to do more digging, to get more educated on that process, because you're going to be providing a service to people. You need to understand what their needs are and where you can provide a service. What is geofencing? Geofencing is what DJI does where they don't allow you to go in certain areas of the airspace because of some sort of restriction, because you're too close to an airport, because there is a flight restriction, because there is a lot of things. It's very controversial because some people believe that they should be allowed to fly anywhere they want. It's got its ups and downs, not to make a bad pun. I think it has prevented a lot of uneducated people from taking off without knowing where they were, meaning that they may have been in a TFR, a temporary flight restriction, or they may have been in a very near an airport where there's large aircraft flying, and it's preventing people from doing that. Let's say that you just got a drone, you're excited, you got it under the tree, you're 15 years old and you don't really know the rules, and you say, I'm going to go out and take off and see what's going on. And you live right at the end of JFK airport runway, and you take off and bam, there's a big airplane just right there. So this would prevent you from doing that. That's one of the positive side. I do believe that people that are Part 107 certified, that are educated on airspace, should be able to bypass the geofencing by either applying to DJI, by showing, I don't know, I don't even know how they would do it, but if it's just I assume the risk of not having geofencing, so you have it by default, and then if you agree to the risk, then they let you do whatever you want. I don't know. It's kind of it's a tough spot, quite frankly. But yeah, I would love to not have geofencing. Not that it's a big issue for us because we don't have a whole lot of geofencing around us. But yeah. Russell says, I've noticed people asking about ADSB in PI forum. Would I be pedantic in suggesting we always say ADSB out when discussing the subject? Yeah, it is important, Russell. I'm guessing you're a manned aircraft pilot, Part 61. There is two components to ADSB. There's an ADSB in, which is receiving the signal in the aircraft so that it gets displayed on the screen, and ADSB out, which is sending the signal for others to see. When we talk about ADSB in general, it's sending the signal to other people. So ADSB out, you're right, would be the correct term. I don't think it's being pedantic. I think it's important that people understand the technology, because otherwise it leads to the issues that we've seen with New Jersey, where people are not educated. They go outside, they see things, and they're like, oh, there's stuff flying in the sky, let's shoot at it. Yeah, not a good idea. Philip says, I have a 13-year-old son. If a drone is registered to me, can he fly it? Yep, absolutely. He does have a trust certificate. Yep, absolutely. Think about the drone registration just like your car registration, right? You register the car maybe under your name, and you're letting your kid that's older than 13 drive the car, or you're letting a friend drive your car. Technically, it is registered under your name, but somebody else is driving it. Same for the drone. Jason says, so I have a question. What about the Granite Mountain Memorial Hotshot Trail in Yarnell, Arizona? Flying there, that is not, as far as I'm concerned, that is not in any sort of airspace that is restricted. Yarnell doesn't have an airport, and I don't think it's I would have to go back and look at the sectional chart, but I don't think it's a wilderness area. So you could fly there, being respectful, obviously. For those of you that are not familiar, the Granite Mountain hotshots were the hotshots are firefighters that are specialized in trying to put out wildfires around the country, and we had a very sad accident in 2013 here in Prescott where we lost a whole crew of hotshots in Yarnell, and they have a big memorial out there. Very sad story. Why does the screen on the RC2 shutter while recording with the Mini 4 Pro? The screen, I don't know actually. I'm not sure, Lou, that I understand the issue. Why does the screen on the RC2 shutter hesitant while recording with the Mini 4 and the Air 3S? Does it show up on the final footage as well? That would be my question. Curtis says, do you think the FAA will go after a Part 107 pilot that flies a 16-gram tiny whoop without remote ID, since the remote ID module weighs more than the entire quad? I mean, I don't work for the FAA, but here's what I've learned with the FAA, dealing with them for over 20 plus years now of being a pilot. The FAA is interested in people that put the safety of the national airspace at risk, okay? I don't think it's a stretch to say that the FAA could not give two craps about a 16-gram tiny whoop that's flying around. Now, if you fly that drone near an airport and you harass airplanes that are flying around, I don't even think anybody would see that anyway, but you get where I'm at. If you use that to fly near people and harass them, then they might even not get involved with that. Just fly with common sense. If it doesn't have remote ID, it's probably not the end of the day if it says 16 grams heavy. I would have a hard time believing that anybody would be interested in pursuing anything like that at the FAA. Yep. If you're trying to set up a space for FAA certification, what would be a good size for that space? I'm not 100% sure. What you might want to do, Philip, you have to go through a CBO, a community-based organization, before you can get a FAA approved. I would recommend reaching out to our friends at Flight Test or our friends at the FPV Freedom Coalition. They will be able to guide you in the right direction to set up the FAA and what size it should be and what works best. But yeah, reach out to them. Reach out to them. Vic says, not legal advice about the tiny whoop. Correct. I am not a lawyer, nor do I pretend to be one. But I will tell you what I believe the spirit of the law is and what the FAA really cares about. Personal opinion. Eric says, I wish they could somehow mandate that drones sold in the US were required to have documents in the box pointing new pilots to a minimum to trust. Man, you and I preach. Seriously, I have been asking for this for years and years and years. The best part is this. The best part is that there is actually a requirement by the FAA for manufacturers to have this document in every boxes, and it's just not enforced. And so this was one of those mandates in one of the FAA Reauthorization Act that the FAA actually put in place, except there's not really any enforcement clause into that. So the manufacturers are either purposely or not on purpose ignoring that regulation and just not putting anything in there. I'll tell you a story. I reached out to one of the large manufacturers several years ago and said that I would help them put that document in the thing. And they said, what's in it for me? That's what they said. That's it. Rick says, any thoughts about attaching an AirTag to your drone to make it easier to find if you crash or it flies away? Not a bad idea. Keep in mind how AirTag technology actually works. If you're flying in a fairly urban environment with quite a few people around, and it's probably a good idea. If you're flying in the middle of nowhere like we fly around here, then it's going to be a lot harder because that AirTag signal gets sent when another device gets close to it, finds its location, and then shares it. So it relies on having a network of iPhones all over the country that are always present when there is, a fairly urban area, then if that AirTag is here, then somebody's going to pick it up, send that signal, pick it up, send that signal. So it works that way. If you're in the middle of nowhere and there is no iPhone nearby, then you're not going to return any kind of information. Now, if you know that you crashed fairly close to a certain area and you're looking for it, then you can make it beep. So yeah, absolutely. You would need to know the general vicinity so that your device can connect to that AirTag to make it beep. I hope that makes sense. I'm making a lot of hand gestures. I'm seeing myself move at the same time. Steven says, the person manipulating the flight control must land the unmanned aircraft as soon as practicable. If the unmanned aircraft is no longer broadcasting, how would the pilot know? Most aircraft have a warning that will tell you that remote ID is no longer being broadcast. If you have a remote ID module, you would not know until you land. So, are people even using remote ID modules? Yeah, well, we have people asking all the time about remote ID modules. So, okay, Jason says, can Dad and I used any of the DJI Enterprise drone to map out a fence for cattle in a pasture? Yeah, I mean, it's a Part 107 operation technically, so you would need to have a Part 107 certificate in order to do that. There is a road near where I fly. Can I set up a boundary so I don't cross the road by accident? Mini 4 Pro. I don't know. The Mini 4 Pro does not have the capability of doing boundaries that I know of. So that would be a no. Okay. Wow, we're at the end of questions. We have 15 minutes to go, folks. Keep asking questions. Keep asking questions. I see we have over 200 people live watching. That's really cool. How do you like the new background? Fireplace right there? No, wait. It's right here. Yeah, this is our new, the new library in the new building. We should say that. All right. Let me see if I can see anybody else. Lots of good questions. I can tell that there's new people that just got their drones, which is cool. I love having folks that just started flying around. So if you're brand new to this, this is the place where you can come and ask your questions. No judgment. There's no such thing as a dumb question. So put them in the comments, and then we'll answer them. We're here every week, mostly, unless we're traveling somewhere, and we answer your questions. And then on Friday we do Friday news updates. So come back for that. We'll keep you updated on everything that's going on. We're getting close to 300 consecutive news updates, which is crazy. Starting this. Before we even started Pilot Institute, I was doing these news updates, which is really cool. So really exciting. Vic says, please remember to put out the fireplace before you leave. Don't want to burn the place down. That is correct. That is correct. We would be in trouble. Do you know what other drones are compatible with the RC controller that came with the Air 2? Ah, damn it. I made a cheat sheet. And I forgot to print it. I asked Jason to make me a cheat sheet on these controllers because I can't remember all of them, and I forgot to print it. I need to print it and put it like right here underneath my desk so I can just pull it and then have it available. We have an article somewhere, I think Jason will link to it, that will show you compatibility of controllers with drones, because it gets complicated and my little brain cannot remember all of it. Let's see. Do you see a future in the U.S. market for drones, or is 2025 the start of the end? No, I don't think. I don't think there is an end to the drone industry anytime soon, if ever. If anything, I think the drone industry will continue to grow tremendously. I'm guessing you're talking about a DJI ban. Will a DJI ban have a significant effect on the industry? Yeah, absolutely. Will it kill a lot of businesses? Yeah, absolutely. I think it will. Will it kill the drone industry? I don't think it will. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in 2025. I want to remain positive, yet cautious, but we shall see. Cascade Drone Services, anything in particular that I need to study to recertify my 107? No, all the training is provided to you and available on the FAA website, so go and watch that. If you want additional information and you're one of our students, you can go back to the course. It's just, yeah, all that data is available in here. Vic says Greg doesn't have a little brain. He has a big brain that is so full it's hard to find stuff up there. Yeah, it's my my Command F function that's difficult sometimes. No, it's funny. I mean, I love doing these live Q&As because it keeps me sharp on my knowledge, but they are just things that I don't use every day. I love regulation in a weird way, and I can remember the spirit of the regulation. Sometimes I forget a couple pieces here and there, but but as far as drones, there's just so many of them and they're so similar. And then the controllers, there's just no rhyme or reason behind how they're compatible with each other. So I just don't remember that stuff. But yeah, a lot of information in my brain indeed. Specta Air Drone, goodbye or good buy, good purchase, or should I go with DJI? It's a DJI drones for all intents and purposes without the DJI tag. I don't think we've gotten to the bottom of where those drones came from and who they are and what the company is. But at the moment, unless it's far cheaper than a DJI drone, I don't see a reason to use it. If there's a DJI ban eventually, is it something that you want to purchase? Probably, if they continue making models, because they're likely not getting banned. So I don't know. It's a hard one, but yeah. Can you recommend a portable ADS-B device for remote work? Does that mean a ADS-B device that would capture the data so you can see it on the screen? If so, I don't really have one other than, well, it's difficult because you need some sort of, it's a tough question. There's not one that I recommend. I'm not familiar with one. I use ForeFlight, but ForeFlight gets its data using the internet. No, that's incorrect. Okay. All right. So, hey, Tom. What's the device that we have in the airplane? The Sentry. Thank you. Okay. All right. So here's the answer. You can buy a device that's called a Sentry. The Sentry is a device that we have in our airplane that we put in the back that captures ADS-B signal in the air as we fly and displays the data in ForeFlight. It's not a cheap solution because you need to buy the device, which is several $100s, and then you need to have a subscription to ForeFlight to be able to display the data. But that's what I can think of right now from the top of my head that I have used that is reliable. Now, how does it work on the ground? I'm not 100% sure because, yeah, the Sentry here, perfect. We can show you what it looks like because we have one right here. This is the device right here. Now, on the ground, this works in the air because we're flying with other aircraft. Their signal gets received by this thing, and we're able to see it. On the ground, there would be a line of sight limitation, right? You agree, Tom? No. It still picks up the towers? Okay. So that probably would be my thing. What was that, $300, $400? I don't remember. Oh, 500, yeah. So it's not cheap for sure. But yeah, I would say the Sentry. But then you need something to display the information, which we use ForeFlight. I don't know if there is a free option for software that works with the Sentry to display that information. I also know that there is a do-it-yourself projects out there that you can use to build your own ADS-B receiver. I don't know how well they work, but that's an option. Yep, that's what I would do. Any news on the Mavic 4 Pro or the Avata 3? Best guess when they'll be released. Mavic 4 Pro, my guess is Q1 of next year. That's as good as I can make a prediction. Avata 3, I have not heard anything on that. So My guess is not Q1 of next year. We'll see. Can I legally fly my 2 Neos at once? No, you can only fly one aircraft at the same time. One aircraft at the same time. One pilot per aircraft. I know why DJI doesn't want you to be able to turn off the remote ID, but why wouldn't they allow you to voluntarily turn it on? If they allow you to turn it on, they allow you to turn it off. If that makes sense. The regulation doesn't allow for an on-off switch. Russell says on the PI 107 forum, there seems to be a lot of confusion on soon-to-be sunsetting North Carolina state drone regulation, which predates Part 107. Do you know anything about those? There is no longer specific requirements in North Carolina to do a test that they had in the past. That's gone. So whatever you've seen before where they said there was a special requirement for North Carolina to do a specific test and a specific registration, that's no longer in place. Is the community premium mainly for businesses? Well, it's mainly for people that are trying to build a business, a drone business. That's why we designed the premium drone community. You also have access to the post-flight, which is what I talked about earlier, where we go more in depth on the news update topics and talk about everything that's happened, but with a bit more opinion, if you want. But yes, it is designed primarily for people that want business. It's if you're familiar with the website. Oh my God, I'm getting tired. It's the end of the day. I'll get back to it. Anyways, yes, it's cool. Did you have any issues with your Air 3S compass? No, mine is consistently asking for calibration when powered on. Been a long time since I've dealt with this on DJI drone. Interesting. No, we have not seen any of that, and we've flown it quite a bit actually. So, nope, I don't know. What would you recommend if your drone gets stuck in custom? Should you just get a refund and try again? Have you guys at Power Institute ever had the issue? No, we got our Air 3S without any issues. We got something else without any issues. So I don't know. It seems to be just hit and miss with those custom issues, very specific. But when people have them, it seems like people are getting them returned back to the sender without being able to get it through, unless they buy from somebody local. So I would say if that's the case, get a refund and then try to find it locally at a local store would be my recommendation. Alex says, is it true any custom build are not eligible to fly for commercial work unless they are registered as a manufacturer? No, that is not true. So if you're building your own drone, you need to comply with remote ID, but using a module is good enough. So no, you can absolutely build your own drone and fly them for Part 107. Do you have a fire extinguisher available for that fire? No, we just have a switch on Ethan's desk that's going to turn off the fire just like that. Jason says, how much is your guy's remote ID? How much is, because I would like to put one on my, we don't have a remote ID module, Jason. That's not something that we do. Do I need to be concerned about the KP index? Tomorrow it is forecasted to be between 5 and 6. It is something to pay attention to. I would do a quick takeoff and kind of see what the signal reception looks like. But unless it's a very high number, I don't know that I would be super concerned. It is something to be looking for when you fly for sure, but I don't know that I would cancel a flight without doing some testing. Currently taking the drone maneuvers mastery. Some of the flights are tough. Yes, they are. That's the goal, is to give you something that you can challenge yourself with and takes a while to master. You know, it's yeah. Jim says, can set max flight distance if they don't want to fly over a road. Yeah, you can absolutely set a specific distance from where you are that doesn't exceed where the road is located. That's a good way to do it, Jim. You would be restricted in a full circle, but yes, that's a good way to do it. Grumpy Cat says, how do you know your drone is under 500 feet under a cloud or 400 feet above a obstacle horizontally? Yeah, you just guess. I mean, the best thing that you can do is take off from where you are and then fly the drone 400 feet away from you. And that will kind of give you an idea of distance. What does 400 feet actually looks like? And in that distance, you can keep it as a mental image, and then you apply it to an object. Chances are, if you're filming that object that you're staying within 400 feet of, keeping it in the frame is enough to be within 400 feet of the object, if that makes any sense. If you were much further away than that, you probably wouldn't see the object. So, and that's just a general rule. All right, we're getting close to the end here. A couple more questions. Are there any company ready to compete with DJI at similar and lower price? No, that's the biggest issue. And this is why we've been vocal about a potential drone ban without having anybody in place that can take over. None of the companies here in the United States, and I'm going to say none, like as a categoric statement, none of the companies in the United States that are currently making drones have any interest in creating drones for the recreational population or for the average prosumer level. A Mini, an Air 3, a Mini, a Mavic, there's no such drones available currently made in the United States. The only company that I can think of that is not Autel or DJI that makes drones like this is a Parrot, a French company, and they haven't made a consumer drone in years. And so I don't think they have the interest or the stomach either. Now, some people will tell you some people will tell you that, well, if we ban DJI, then these people will come out of the woodwork and somebody will want to compete. It's too late. If we wait until DJI is banned to say, oh, okay, well, now there's a market, I'm going to start making drones. How long does it take to make a drone? What's the R&D cycle for DJI to create a drone from the beginning all the way to the end to production? Who has the production capability today to take over production of all the drone demand that we have from just DJI? And the answer is no one. No one. And there's no one that's interested even in doing that anyway. So, okay, that's all I'm going to say. If DJI gets banned, will I still be able to fly if I own one? Yes, it looks like the drone bans that we've seen only cover new models, not current models. So you would still be able to finish flying your drone. Do you see a new drone manufacturer entering to rival DJI, or are we seeing the TikTok, Amazon toy market taking over? I don't see anybody coming in. And like I just said, even if they did, the number of years that it would take them to get there is several years at best to be able to ramp up production. So no, that's why I said it would be dramatic to this industry, but the lobbying organizations that are pushing for this kind of ban don't want to understand that, don't have a financial interest in us, although they should, because we're the ones that are paying for their subscriptions to keep them alive, right? AUVSI, that's who's keeping you alive, is the people that are paying for your subscription every month that you're charging so that you can take drones away from them. So keep that in mind, folks. If you're an AUVSI person that pays for AUVSI, they're the ones trying to take your drones away. All right, amongst other people. You've been discussing DJI bans. What about Holystone? No, right now it's DJI and Autel that are the target. None of the other drones out there. All right, I'm going to stop right now. 5:03, we went over. And yeah, that's it. We will see you next year. Look at that, how that works. Have a happy new year. Be sure to fly safely. Be sure to be a mentor to other people out there that just got their new drones. We will see you on Friday for news updates. And then in the meantime, if you need me, I'll be in a new building working all day tomorrow. So come say hi. All right. See you next time.